everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions about media production. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Mitch, what do we have?
Thanks, Alex. First in, John Foltz from Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, asking, I want to upgrade my 2017 MacBook Pro. I do some video editing and graphics, but often use desktop machines. I'm debating on MacBook Air 15 or MacBook Pro 16. What are your thoughts?
Nigel?
I guess the answer is depends what we mean by some editing. If some editing is an occasional edit on a plane or finishing off something, then I think either will be fine. I think if some editing is a lot of work with 8K streams and complicated stuff, then you want to go for the MacBook. I mean, the big MacBook Pro, the big thing about the 16, which is a heavy and a big beast, is the fans will ensure you get more power against the job for a longer period of time. So it really depends how much some is and how much you're really traveling with this thing. The 16 is a great thing, but it's a heavy thing. And so you need to define your real use case.
Chris?
I also think the MacBook Pro has more gazintas and gazautas, more ports, which is nice. And I think it will drive more monitors than the Air, which may be of use if you're going to do something like what Bill Davis does. I think Bill Davis, his primary machine is his MacBook Pro, which I find a little crazy. But, he's got everything plugged into it. I'm sure he's got a few port replicators and whatnot. But you can only go so much with, a hub or something. Sometimes having that extra bus, I believe it. And that's why the MacBook Pro can have more monitors than the Air.
I think the big question is, are you planning to generate revenue with your laptop or not? If it's for fun, get an Air. If you're going to get paid for it, get a Pro. There's enough additions to what the Pro has that it's worth just upgrading those if this is really going to be something that you consider a business expense. If you're just having fun with it and doing an edit here and there, then the Air is fine. But if you're going to do anything regularly, I would strongly recommend the Pro. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, have you ever had to convince decision makers that an increase in acquisition cost for capital equipment is worthwhile in the long term?
Nigel?
Yes, every week. CapEx versus OpEx is an interesting conversation to have. So CapEx is your capital expense that you depreciate over time. Operating expense comes out of, obviously, your operating budget. They both require cash, so let's not confuse those two things with having the cash to pay these things. Reality is that the question here is how much of it it is. And if it is a very significant expense, then you're going to need to work on a break-even period. How long are you going to use it for? How long does it last? What's the write-off? How much you're going to depreciate? You have to think about this in terms of it. Yeah, the other element of this in a large capital expense, you should think about, can I lease it? Which is, turning it into an OpEx rather than a cash payment. But at the end of the day, every piece of capital equipment, you should have this conversation with. You should ask yourself about, depreciation and lifetime. If you can get it all paid off in a single job, that's great. But, as a business, if you're doing something, you have to manage the accounting rules when you do that.
Mitchell?
9 times out of 10, you're explaining something that you need that costs money to somebody who has no idea what it is that you do. So what you attempt to do is say there's a decent return on investment, that we can work faster, and I get no back for that. I like it because it's the newest version. No, and then I usually use my clincher, which is you look great on camera with it. Approved.
Yeah, when you're thinking about acquisitions or getting anybody to do anything or spend anything, I'm just going to keep coming back to action occurs when possibility is greater than circumstance. And so what you're looking for is, what is the possibility? The circumstance, because the cost of buying that. But what is the possibility? And you have to figure out, what are you going to tell them? Like, this is why this makes sense. It's not what you think is the possibility. It's what they think is the possibility. So you need to speak into their listening. You need to talk into this thing. This means that sometimes you format things in a way that it's going to make sense for them. It doesn't matter whether it makes sense for you. And this is the mistake people a lot of times make when they're trying to sell anything, is they have an idea of how it makes sense for them, but they're not good at articulating how it makes sense for the person that they need to move. And so in this process, you're thinking about, so for instance, one of the ways that I did it at ILM seems like a little thing now, but I had to write a 3-page paper on why we should go from 128 megs of RAM to 192 megs of RAM in my Mac. And what I did is I looked at I calculated my hourly that ILM was paying me. I showed this is how much it costs per hour, and this is how long it takes to render, and this is how much less it will take to render if I have a little bit more RAM. And I had to explain how the renderer works and what it looks like, and I had little pictures along the way. And I said, if we do this, you'll save this many hours, and in, I don't know, something like 2.5 months, it'll get paid off. And then after that, you're just saving money. And the next week we had RAM for everybody. RAM for you, and you get RAM, and you get RAM, and you get RAM. And then I did it again, saying we should have a second computer we could render to, because we didn't have access to Ubiquiti. So we should get a second computer. That one, and I just wrote another paper of this is how you save money, and this is how quickly it happens, and little graphs and everything else. And then we all got another computer. It was very easy to move forward because I understood the person I'm asking just cares about the numbers. Like, what are we actually going to save on this? And it was very effective. By the way, the second one wasn't as popular because the render time was our coffee break. So when we had a second computer, we didn't have as many excuses. So I might have gone too far. Go ahead, Chris.
Everybody hates you. Yeah, there was a very interesting discussion this last week. I won't say who it was, but changes in their company that they work for, and they're actually pulling back on some of the resources that this person has to do their job. It's like, why do you need all those subscriptions? We're going to cancel that and cancel that and cancel that. And when the bean counters get to the point where they go, we don't think you really need all that Adobe stuff. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm dealing with somebody that just doesn't understand the process. And it's super interesting, but same thing. I think you have to be able to explain to that person what the true cost of taking away something that looks like a line item. As it turned out, we ascertained, he finally said, yeah, I think they're trying to sell the company. I go, well, there's the problem. They're just trying to make their bottom line look good to the investor, and you're going to be in for a world of hurt until that sale happens. It's just going to get super awkward.
Yeah, and oftentimes when people are cutting, or you don't have it, the other thing to do is list, oftentimes, an email. These are the downfalls of us not making this investment right now. I recommend that we do this investment. These are things I think we can get out of it, and this is what we may pay for if we don't have that. And that email is a little bit of a I've learned not to say what it means, which is. When I say that, what I mean is we're going to return to this conversation. And I used to say that at the end of the email, like, when this happens, when what I told you happens, we're going to come back to this email. And then I decided
Please
that was
save this email for later reference.
Yeah. So I've learned not to be quite that heavy-handed, but I used to be pretty heavy-handed about it because I just knew exactly how this was going to turn out. Like, I've seen this movie, I know exactly how it ends, and it always ends that way. But people don't like being told 6 months ahead of time that something's going to happen and then having it happen. You think that that's a good thing, but it actually just makes them feel foolish. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, you print the email, you put it with a cover letter, said, I sealed this in this envelope on November 3rd, and then you seal it, you put it you pin it onto the wall of your cubicles, and you go, oh, it's that day. Pull that down, go, here, could you open this for me, please?
Yeah, but being able to really speak into other people's listening, to listen, and when I'm in meetings with folks, whether it's someone else in my company, when I'm asking questions to a client, to a partner, to higher up, I'm listening for their circumstances and I'm listening for their possibilities. What do they want to get out of this, and what is stopping them? And what do they feel like is there? And you're trying to always match those up and make sure that you're matching a possibility that they have with a circumstance that they have, and with the possibility being greater than the circumstance. And if you can do that, you can move a lot of things down the path. Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Can you connect the Netgear Nighthawk M6 Pro mobile 5G hotspot to a Ubiquiti 16-port power over Ethernet switch, which is in turn hardwired to a Ubiquiti Unifi UDM SE, and have it work for failover? Or does the M6 need to connect directly to the EDM?
I'm gonna wait until someone pops in. It says because I don't know that answer, but fortunately we have great smart people watching this show. Mickey says no, it does not need to be connected directly. You just need to set a separate VLAN on the switches for the M6 Pro WAN and route it to the WAN 2 of the UDM. There you go. Next question.
And it's a QR code question coming in from Gabriela Excesio Mastira from Sault Ste. Marie. I'm excited by these desks that Mitch recommended. Can Mitch show off how he is using his Husky desk and made the wiring work? Pretty please.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I'd love to, Gabriela, but I don't have one, although I highly recommend them as a good starting point for any kind of desk you have. And sometimes desks have built-in wire management. It might be a lip on the back side that holds the wires so that they stay together. And then it might also be a device or thing that you clip on to the desk after the fact to manage your wires. I think it's good you're thinking about that because you can start out with a beautiful desk. I'll show you mine, but I think everybody would freak out. And then within weeks, it's a mass of wires and boxes and things being plugged into each other. So the first thing I would do by getting one of these inexpensive $200-$300 desk, there's a 62-inch version from our friends at Home Depot, is to drill the grommet holes so you can have a place to put your monitor cables through towards the back. They make these. Just do a search on Amazon for it. But basically, you drill out like a 2-inch hole or a 1.5-inch hole, and then you drop these little plastic things into them, and then you can stick your wiring through that. It's a neat, tidy way to do it. But other than that, I can only describe it. I can't tell you because I don't have one.
Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Nvidia just released today a chat with RTX, an app that lets you run a personal AI chatbot on your PC. You can feed it with YouTube videos and your own documents to create summaries and get relevant answers based on your own data. Thoughts?
I think it sounds really interesting. And I think that Nvidia is doing a really interesting thing of pushing a lot of these calculations out to the edge. Of course, a lot of the AI companies are using a lot of NVIDIA's hardware to do a lot of the work that they're doing with AI. And so NVIDIA is taking some of that learning and some of the use cases and pushing it out to the edge. I can see them making more affordable boards that are really tuned just for this operation. So I think it's a really great idea. It's really an interesting possibility of being able to interrogate your own content and be able to chat with it and ask questions rather than trying to search for something or look at something, being able to just sit there and talk about, well, what do we know from that? And some companies where they produced, thousands of hours of documents or thousands of pages of documents, this is going to be really interesting. I would love to, for instance, take all the stuff from WWDC and just put it all into an AI thing where that's your only reference and all the references that Apple has and let you just chat with it as you're trying to figure something out. And I think that those kinds of things are probably not very far away. Go ahead, Chris.
Have you seen that NVIDIA island they're making?
Does it run really fast?
No,
it's really high polygon?
It's like a barge that has, it's a barge full of GPUs. And the point of it is they're putting it in international waters so it can't be regulated. And it's like water cooled from seawater, which sounds like a rusting problem. But it's this huge, I don't know what's going on.
Is NVIDIA paying for that or is someone else paying for it?
I think it's an NVIDIA project.
Interesting.
There's
12 miles out.
Google,
That's all you got to do is get 12 miles out.
There's some Google in our future. That's all I'm saying. I think it's 200 miles.
Yeah, you could gamble
200 miles that you're out of the laws? I thought it was 12.
I believe so.
I think it's 200
you're living in the 70s still. I think that's changed.
I think there's two different rules at 212.
More Google.
More Google. Next question.
Joaquin Matus from Imperial Valley, California. Thoughts on the Super Bowl halftime show from a production perspective?
I thought that the halftime show overall was pretty good. I didn't like the audio. So at least at the very beginning, I really felt like he was using a headset mic. And I felt like it almost felt like it was like he had been left alone with his mic. Like he sounded really far forward in it. And so I felt like maybe they were trying to prove that it was real, because it didn't feel as mixed in. It was definitely, you could definitely tell he was moving, and you could hear his voice efforting and everything else. And so I think that maybe they were trying to make sure that they were kind of flexing, like, this is not lip sync. This is actual, this is actually people singing, because that's something that everyone always says and I think that there were parts of it that then got really clean, which I think they might have been lip syncing. so when things got more complicated, but I do think that there was, but I think that at the beginning, I think they might have been trying to sell that, because what it sounded like was not great audio, down that path. And Mickey said it sounded like it was switching between live and lip sync as well. So I think that some of the harder parts and the more complex parts might have gone into lip sync. But they brought enough back in to make you feel, I think that's what the attempt was. Overall, I thought what was interesting is they made it more about, I felt like they made it more about the artists and less about the craziness that they've had. In the last couple of years, they're running all over the stadium. Last year, of course, Rihanna was suspended from, platforms and everything else. And this one felt like it was a lot more, it felt like it was a lot more centered on the stage, and there was a lot more to it, and it didn't quite extend out. It was more about the artists and less about the technology and less about the craziness. I mean, it was still a crazy halftime event, but I felt like it was more focused on people and less focused on, oh, look at what we can do. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, we were chatting in after hours, and the general consensus is Usher's headset failed or wasn't up to spec, and he went to the handheld. And then the other thing to keep in mind is I think they run a lip sync track just as a backup. So they must have been going between the failed headset, the handheld mic, and the backup lip sync. So that would account for a lot of weirdness.
I doubt that they had a failure there. But I think it was just that they switched over. I think it looked like when they switched over, they were planning to switch to that next thing. But it's possible, but it's not. I don't think that was the case. And I don't know. I think that Mickey said that he thought the Alicia Keys felt very lip sync, but there was some key issues there for Alicia Keys that might have been, there was, some stuff didn't look like it was hitting right on there. But she was amazing. I thought it was really fun to watch her sing. And I think that anyway, I thought it was good. I kind of was left with, it didn't feel as memorable. Like, it's not something you talk about as much, but it was kind of enjoyable when it was happening, kind of thing. So, anyway, I just didn't feel like it wasn't going to be something you talk about the next day, I guess is what I would say.
John Preto says that Rick Beato said that it was a mix between the live and the recorded.
Very good. And Beato, I think. I did like, if you looked at the one thing that I was impressed with was if you looked, and it's not impressed like it's hard to do, but it was just fun to watch, is everyone was given bracelets or something to hold up in the audience. And so they were syncing all the audience lights. So there's all these lights going up and down around them. So kind of turning the audience into part of the show. I always think that that's really fun. If you can pull the audience in to the show and have them be part of it. It's interesting. One of the things I was thinking about related to this was how when I was growing up, it was something about the national anthem that I thought was interesting, which was, I hadn't really thought about it in as much detail as I did last night, or the other day or 2 nights ago, was when you really do your own version of the national anthem, when you sing it your own way, it makes it impossible for the audience to sing with you. And I think that when we grew up, it was when I grew up, it was, and I know I'm being like, when I was a kid, they always just sang it the same way. But I think that there is a power to having the audience doing something, having that many people doing something together. And I think we've lost that in the national anthem by trying to flex in the sense that we're going to sing it, and I think that Reba McEntire did a pretty good job of getting pretty close to that. But I think that, I was just really thinking about that flex of doing, like when Post Malone did his version of God Bless America, he did it and it was really good. I mean, he did his version of that, but no one else is going to be able to sing with it. And almost everybody in that stadium knows the song. Like if you just, and I think that there's an opportunity to pull the audience back in that I think is lost when you do it in a really edgy way. I get why they want to do it that way, but I think that there's something lost in the opportunity of the audience really feeling like they're part of the show. And I think that it was an interesting thing that I thought of while watching that stuff. Next question.
Paul Walhus from Hot Springs, Arkansas. What is the best Nvidia RTX 30 or 40 series GPU with at least 8 gigabytes of VRAM?
40 series. The 40 series is better. Like, which is the best? 40 series is going to be better than the 30 series. So I mean, it's a newer outlay. So I think that one's pretty straightforward. I don't know if it's best for the money. It depends on what you're doing with it, but the 40 series is going to be better. A quick reminder, of course, that you can ask your questions whenever you'd like. Go into Makana. Make sure to vote on the questions. It's really important to us to have you voting on questions so that we know what you'd like us to talk about and in what order. So make sure to vote on the questions in Makana. If you're not in Makana, you can go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, and you can ask those questions 24/7, and we'll either get them in on the same day of the show or the next day. And try to make sure it's one question at a time. If we see a bunch of question marks, if you ask like a leading question with a whole bunch of question marks, we're probably not going to answer that one. So ask a question in the QR code and put it in there. And again, vote on the questions. It's really important to us. Next question.
Scott Mueller, Germantown, New York. Is there any way to get 1080p from a Zoom client on an iPhone? Seems like my camera is way better than the 720p I output into a meeting.
I thought that there is a way to do that. I think that there is a HD setting. I believe that there was an HD setting that would push it to, and I go on to Zoom so little on my iPhone that I'd have to try to find the setting. But there is, I believe, a methodology to getting to 1080p. Find my iPhone here. Then I have to join Zoom. Then I have to figure it out. So I do believe that there. Oh, Mickey says no. HD mobile is just 720. So for whatever reason, it's just 720p. I think that the goal there, or the belief there, is that 1080 is not something you need on your phone, and the number of people who have it is probably very low. I have seen recently a phone app that will do 4K HDR. so the phone is capable of it. I think it's just a decision about making sure that it stays stable for shows. I think that's the issue: is will it stay stable in that environment? Next question.
Next question from Lois Richter in Davis, California. It's a QR code question. Does a normal microphone pick up all the sounds that a healthy human in the same room would hear? That is, what range of sounds is heard by a microphone, recorded in a file, and played through a speaker? And how does that compare with the human hearing?
Usually, a microphone will pick up a wider range than the human can hear. The average human can hear. Most microphones have some kind of response between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And so generally it's going to be, and most of us can't hear to 20,000 hertz or down to 20. So those are outside of our range. So usually the microphone is hearing more than what we hear. And there's some microphones that'll go to 100,000 hertz. And those are really cool. It's on my wish list so of having one. Usually they can do that. So you're usually not getting less. Now, a lower quality mic may not have a good response at a higher end or a good response at a lower end, but it usually is hearing it to some degree. It just depends on what the sensitivity is in that area. Next question.
Next question from Harshid Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida. How accurate do you find the audio description done in the video? The fact that today is graphics day and we're looking at Super Bowl as a whole, would it make sense to have someone already describing a live sports event in English as such?
I don't know how accurate I have to admit that I just haven't seen the audio description that much, so I would not know. I'm not sure where I'm not quite clear whether you're talking about the audio in the video that we're going to look at or in our own show. So let us know. We'll get back to that. Next question.
Steve Barr from Seattle, or Bear. I can't afford a MixPre-3 II with noise assist. Suggestions for a mixer with 2 XLR inputs that can handle 48-volt phantom power and has USB out for under $200. Is the Scarlet 2i2 4th gen out of the question?
Go ahead, Nigel.
So I have a bad experience with the Scarlet, which I know lots of other people have. I found the software very tough. I couldn't think of a 2. I did think of a 1, which is the Roland UVC 2, which is just under that price barrier. I think I saw it for about, I saw it today on Adorama for about 200. I don't know. They may have a 2XLI input one, but it is a case of buy once, cry once. If it's 400, I think Mitch is saying for the two. Anyway.
No, there's a 4XLR version.
Okay. So I would really encourage this, but I would tell you buy once, cry once. I've been through a lot of mixes before I got to the MixPre.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
The Flow 8's pretty good. And if Steve, if you were closer, I would give you this one. There's the Scarlet right there. Sorry.
Sorry, you're so to him. Yeah. Don't inflict that kind of pain. Nikki suggests an SSL 2, which is another one that's in that price range. I think under $200 you'll be a little challenged to find something that you want to keep. But once you go to the $200 to $400 range, you may find a couple more options. Zoom also has a couple options there that might be a good interface for you. I don't know. I mean, some people really swear by the Scarlet 2i2. I will tell you that I've never spent more time dealing with hardware problems than the Scarlet. And literally from one moment to the other, it was working and then not working. It is a really frustrating piece of hardware, for me. And it's usually working with music artists and trying to get the things to work, and suddenly it's just not working, and then we spend an hour trying to figure out what happened with the Scarlet to make it work. And so it's just the single piece of hardware in the world that has tied up the most amount of my time. So I really am bitter about that piece of hardware. Also, Daniel Partridge says he's got a PreSonus Revelator IO24, and it's discounted right now to $99. So there you go. So take a look at that too. The Revelator is a great piece of hardware as well. Next question.
Funsak Dorji from Dharamsala, India, asks question, panelist, can you recommend a good headset for interview and Zoom meetings that doesn't break the bank? Thanks.
It depends on which bank you're trying to break. I mean, it is, so there's, the hard part is I think the question really gets into what quality are you looking for and how, what kind of quality? So you're trying. What's the quality that you're trying to hit, and what's the cost that you're trying to hit, and then how big do you want it to look? So you can get things that are less expensive. Shure makes a variety of headset mics that sound okay, that are in the $200 or $300 range. The ones that we use for most of our remote kits is either a DPA 4066 or a Countryman H6. The H6 is a little less expensive. The H6 also has a little bit more sibilance and not quite as much low end as the DPA, but it's a very solid mic, and that's what I use when I travel. So it's just you really have to decide what you're looking for and how low profile it needs to be. Go ahead, Chris.
This is a really interesting thought process, because this question with the last question, we should do this. We should do this as a community. We should have a roadmap from nothing to top shelf, and the goal would be to buy almost nothing that you have to get rid of, and to slowly ramp up. If I was talking to somebody that had no money, it's like, I gotta just sound a little better, I'd say, go to the gas station and buy a pair of earbuds with a mic hanging on it for a phone that has a wired connection. That's going to be better than an open speaker, and it's going to be better than most microphones built into computers. It's not great, but it's better. Plus, you can reuse those earbuds. The next thing I'd do is I'd get one of those MV7s, the one that's USB and or XLR, and use it USB for a while. Save your money, buy once, cry once, save your money. Then you get the interface, which will sound better. Then you can go off the USB, go to the XLR. You could still be using the same headphones if you needed to. And then if you want, you can get some fancy Linsoles or whatever. Or if you're lazy like me, you just wear your old headphones. But the goal, when I design stuff, I'm always thinking like, I don't want to ever buy anything that I have to retire. Like, I just want to keep going up. Get this, and this adds on to this, and it's a logic process that actually, I mean, I think about it, with home improvement things, just everything. I'm always trying to save that going backwards step.
And definitely when you let us know what you think about and where you're trying to go. But when folks in general, when you ask these questions, give us an actual price range. Like the last one told us like kind of where you're looking at. But breaking the bank it really depends on what you're trying to do. But again, you can get ones that sound really good under $200. You just have to know that they're going to be bigger. They're not going to be really tiny. It's the tiny electorates that are really small, that sound good, that get expensive. And you should really be expecting to spend over $300 for something that you're going to want to keep. And it'll be $300 to $700, typically $300 to $800 are the ones. Shure is kind of on that low end, $300. The Countrymen are in the middle, DPA's on the top. And then as you go below that, you really, to get good quality under $300, you're really going to be thinking about larger microphones, and so again, Shure's got a bunch of them, go all the way down to $89, but those are going to be bigger, solutions for you to work with. Next question.
Jamie Edwards in Atlanta asks, using the Insta360 Pro II, what software options are there to create a 360 walkthrough of a space? It can be used for instructional training, novice to pro options.
Well, I believe in the novice area, Insta360 makes its own software that actually works really well with its own cameras. And so you really want to look at the reframing software that's within Insta360. That's where you're going to want to start. As you move up, there are some tools in Final Cut, actually probably some tools I think in Resolve as well that will let you take a spherical data and reframe those. They're going to be a lot clunkier in a lot of ways to make it work, but you are going to be able to do more things. You could do potentially more animations and so on and so forth. And at the very high end, we bring in spherical stuff into Nuke if you're trying to composite things into it and make things work. So there's a different ranges of things that you can do, but where most people that I know go in with the Insta360 is to use their software that they make, which actually works fairly well and is designed to work with that footage. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I like to point out that language is really important. And for the majority of Alex's answer there, I had read your question as to create a 360 walkthrough of space. And I was thinking, can you take an Insta360 into outer space?
They have actually. There's one. I believe that there's an Insta360 in the space station, but I don't know if they've.
No, I mean, like, could you mount it onto like the helmet of somebody doing a spacewalk?
You could, but you'd be surprised at how little you would see. So the funny thing about it is it's just a lot of space.
Space. You're going to see nothing but
it's black and like the thing you're looking at. It would be interesting to have, to put it on there. I'm sure that they have some 360 cameras. I don't know if it's Insta360. I know that there's a couple different 360 cameras that are in the space station, so they have the capability of doing that.
Would it even work in?
Yeah, it would work in space. Oh, I don't know. It's really cold. It works. It works in the space. It works in the space station. It is. I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if it would work. I think it might be outside of its spec to go into space. It's really cold. So anyway, so I think that the other thing to look at as you look at the Insta360, if you're trying to do a walkthrough. Now it depends on whether you're trying to cut 16:9s, but also remember that there are a variety of tools that will map out your, you can build. The question is, do you want to just do a walkthrough where people are just jumping from one place to another? So there's a lot of real estate software that will let you do a walkthrough of a space, and that is fairly easy to put together. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I just sent a chat note to Insta360 whether or not it would void the warranty if you sent it into space, just for you, Chris.
We're sending it into space. Will it void the warranty? Next question.
David Brady, New York City. The question is, in the panel's opinion, is there any benefit to using a Mac Studio versus a Mac Mini for video playback, a la QLab, MIDI, or Playback Pro?
Mitchell?
I have an M1. It does fine up to 4K, and I haven't tried 8K because I don't have any 8K. So I think you're okay with the M1. Anything above that would be fine, but make sure it's the silicon version.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'd say an M1 would be fine. What really matters is, do you need multiple outputs? If you're doing something where you're spanning multiple screens possibly, then a studio is going to be a better bet. I'll tell you, years ago, I was on a call with the folks at Grass Valley. They had some fancy box. I can't remember what it was. It had a name. And I needed to spec a piece of hardware for something. And I got the guy on the phone and I said, so why would I use this? Because it had to transcode. When I put the file in, it would have to. I was going to put a ProRes file into it, and it had to transcode it into something. And I said, why would I do that when I could just put it on a Mac and play it ProRes out of that? And he goes, well, we're broadcast hardware, and he just went on and on. So I said, okay, well, because as an experiment, I've been playing this file on a Mac for the last week and a half, and it's playing fine. And he goes, I think I had nothing. He had no comeback. I ended up speccing a Mac to play the file back for the client. It worked fine.
And one note is, for a lot of times, think about your drive size. So you want a large drive, and you want it to be internal if you can. You can do it from external drives, but the drive internal in these computers is really, really fast. And the other thing you want to look at is you're always going to want to play off of an SSD or an NVMe or something that is solid state. You want this drive speed. You're going to be tempted to say, oh, well, it'll be easier to do H.264. It's actually not. So the computer will play back more seamlessly from an Apple ProRes file than it will from an H.264 because it doesn't have to do the decode. Next question.
Next one from Peter Johannesson from Sweden. So, plain and simple, which ad did you like the best?
Well, which ads did we like the best? I have to admit that I really like the Christopher Walken. Just so people. So the ad is really. I'm not going to play them all here. You're already in enough trouble for the next hour. But the ad with Christopher Walken is everyone impersonating Christopher Walken to him, and he's like, and so anyway, so I found that one to be relatively enjoyable. I think that I think that the Arnold Schwarzenegger was. We talked about this yesterday. I thought it was a lot of fun. The long version when Danny DeVito's in it. And the last quip from Dan DeVito makes the commercial funny, and so anyway, so I think that, and I love things like that where they get kind of zing you right at the very end. So anyway, so I thought that those were good. I didn't feel like there was a lot of ads that stood out. I think we talked about that in the past. It felt like this was a pretty low key, very safe. So yeah, go ahead, Chris. You look like you're pregnant with an idea.
So this is a discussion I think Mitch and I were having it yesterday in after hours. It has been my observation in the last several years that many Super Bowl commercials are grotesquely simple in their production. Like maybe one shot, one title card, done. Maybe not, no celebrity. Now, some have big celebrities and some are very elaborate, whatever. Do you think that there is a percentage of companies that once they decide, yes, we're going to buy this ad, that they look at it and they go, you know what? We blew the whole budget on the airtime. What can we shoot that's super, super cheap? Do you think that comes up, or do you think it's purely style?
I think they put a lot of money into most of these ads. I mean, most of these ads are pretty expensive ads when you look at them. They're simple, but like, the one with whatever the trading one is with the talking kids, there's kids sitting there talking to each other, like little toddlers talking to each other. And that looks like a simple ad. It's a really expensive ad. Like to do what they were doing was really hard. So they're trying to keep it so that you can pay attention to those things. I don't think that I think we did see a lot of stars this fall. We talked about this yesterday. We saw a lot of stars in the ads because they didn't have anything else to do in the fall. So they were they weren't the SAG strikes didn't keep them from doing commercials, and so there they were. Like, hey, why don't we be in a commercial? And it was a very odd collection of stars too that they put in. It was like, really, I hadn't seen that actor in a long time. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, to support Chris's case there, you'd have to go back a few years to the Frito-Lay commercial where the kid had the cardboard time machine and went into it. And it was like a one shot with a cut, and that was it. And the other one, as far as expense goes, how much do you think Martin Scorsese paid to have flying saucers over New York?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's not the one I'm talking about. There are. I mean, I could go back and find examples. The cheapest one I think to produce was probably Disney. Disney was just like, I'm like, wow, they're spending $7 million to type words on the screen. That's a flex, especially when you have all that content. But like for instance, the Paramount one, they spent a lot of money on that ad. Of course, they weren't paying. I mean, they weren't paying the same amount of money for it, but they spent a lot of money with Picard or Patrick Stewart throwing
something into a cliff. And so I think that they're generally, I don't think that they're cheaping out on the money. I think it's just they want a concept that's going to work and it's going to travel. You have to pay attention to this. Sometimes you'll take less risks because a lot of people are watching. Average view, I think, was a world record yesterday. I think it was 128 or 123 million viewers. It's quite a thing. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Has anyone ever worked with a Midas Pro Series mixing console?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, at the risk of showing how old I am, the old analog Midas boards, I stood next to the A1, and I marveled at the sound of their preamps. But now that they're part of Behringer and are all digital or digitally controlled analog, I can't give you any updated information.
I will say that the X32 is the X32 and the Midas version of that is a much different mixer. Like, and I think that Dave Rat opens one up and kind of breaks it down, but they're much more solid mixers. So it does make a difference to go to the Midas brand inside of the Behringer platform. They're definitely wiring everything up differently than they do with the X series. Next question.
David Brady, New York, New York. What are some real-world use of the Magewell's Pro Audio Convert DX?
And of course, this came in after the show started, so I'm gonna dance around and hope that somebody looked at it before we got to here. I am not. Let's see here. So what this is? Let me pull this over here. Let's see. So this is it's support for a variety of outputs here. So this is 1 to 4 channels, audio class in. There's no pictures. How did I not get any pictures here? Anyway, so it's hard for me to kind of get my.
Yeah, David sent us the least interesting link.
Well, it has the specs. So I guess if this is new, I think the only thing that's really jumping out to me is 8 channels of Dante. So this is the thing that I'm most interested in, is being able to embed and de-embed Dante. SoundFX is the only other one that I know of that does that. They do 16 channels, not 8. And that does make a difference because a lot of times when we're trying to, the reason that we've used these in the past is to do multi-language, and we have more than 8 languages. And so we want to pack them all in, but we want to come in out of our Dante. So I'm assuming that this is, and I'm not sure if this is a brand new product because I didn't know of another product other than the SoundFX that did, let's see here, it's really inexpensive. Is that really? So here's the actual box here. And so it's Ethernet with Dante. Oh man, David Brady found something that's very pretty. Oh, it doesn't. No, Mickey says that it doesn't embed or de-embed to and from the SDI. Well, what was it doing then? Well, why? Hold on. Bridges off. It does analog audio. Oh, it just takes Dante and lets you pipe it out of audio. Okay. All right. Fine. So this is another. I guess I would say. Oh, this is. Let's see here. So this is just letting you do balanced or unbalanced in and out of a from Dante. So you can peel off. My understanding of this right now is that you can peel off the audio. And Mickey said he's used NDI to Dante bridge is what he's used it for in the past. So anyway, I was excited there for a second. so it's good. I probably would still end up using, for me, I'd probably use the Avios for most of those things. I don't need to, but it does bridge from NDI to Dante, which is cool. But for me, if it's analog out, I'd be using the Avios most likely, rather than a box. But yeah, it's interesting. If what we really need is someone to do a less expensive and more stable version of the SoundFX, I need to embed and de-embed from SDI. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy from Tromsø, Norway. It's graphics day again. What keynote tips will we see today?
So let's see here. One thing that I was doing, I was animating something yesterday. I'll show you here. I really need to get caught up on this. I apologize. I'm still working on it. I wanted to show how something was, it looks a certain. I got to change my default theme because it always goes up to something I hate. Anyway, so what I was doing is I wanted to animate something, and here's one of the problems in Keynote is that if you start animating a complex frame in Keynote, the challenge you get into is that you can't see what you actually did. Like if you use because what happens is that you can up here, this animate here is really powerful. You can say, I want to, not just how I bring something in. So if I have if I put a sphere in here, let's say a sphere like this, and I'll make it a little bigger. And I can say, I want this to, I can add an effect here. I can say I want it to pop in. And then I want to do a build out, and we'll build something else in here, and we'll say, oh, we want to trace out. Let's see. There you go. So there, I make that sound. I have to admit that I do make the sounds while I animate things. I can't stop. I would love to not do it, but I can't help myself.
That's a new effect I've never seen.
And then you have oh yeah, it's cool. There's lots of cool effects built in. So then you have these in here. So basically you can do things like, you can have there's moving, and then you have little things like you want it to blink, or you want it to flip, or you want it to jiggle. So you have like, let's see if we can preview that. I don't know what I did there. Let's change that to something else. Move. There we go. All right. So now, so you have this. Let's say I want to move it over this way, and I want to, have it do this. I don't know why I would do that, but we'll do it this way, and then we'll hit a preview here, and they'll go. I have no idea why it's just disappearing.
Maybe it doesn't work well with that built in.
Should build in, and then it just. This is what happens when you try to show someone live that you haven't rehearsed. That you end up with a situation here, but it does feel weird that it. Let's see. Let me try playing it just to see what happens here. See if it does this. So it pops in, it pops out. Oh, it's the play order. Sorry, that's all I need to see. So build order here. Build order is important. So I put the move after I got rid of it. so you have to move the thing over here. So now it should. Now the preview should work. Yeah, there we go. So that's what you have here. But the problem is you start doing things where you can add more and more moves. I can add another action, and I can add another action. And so what happens is you can't see what's going on because you've done too many things in one frame. And so one of the things I was doing yesterday was I had, let's get rid of all of this stuff, get rid of those moves. And I'm going to make this, what I was doing is showing how I have a shape. Oops. Format for that shape, and I want to make it, let's say, something like gray. And then what I want to do is I'm going to lower its capacity a little bit, and then I'm going to say I'm just going to copy it a couple times. And I could animate those out, but the other way for me to do that is to animate them using just using another frame. So I take those. You have to make them first, and then I'm going to copy and paste it to a new frame. And then I'm just going to pull them out like this. And have them spin out like that. And then what I'm going to do is go back here and go into here and say, I'm not selecting any objects. I just have the frame selected. So I selected, and I have a different set of effects. And one of them is magic move. So I can animate those out. Now I could have tried to animate them out, but I know where I want them to go. So it's like a keyframe. So now and then what I can do is if I copy this frame, let's say, and put it down below like that, I can take this one and say, I want to do a magic move as well. And so I can say, the problem, let's see here. So if we go into this and we go, the problem really is that you think you're in one place, but you're really in 4 places. And what we actually want to do is bring it back and pull it into place here. So those are, that's a quick little animation of trying to explain something where you're essentially, it's a keyframe, and you could try to keyframe that, and you can keyframe it in that process, but you have to understand that the magic move is a great way to animate scenes where you're kind of moving. I want to move a whole bunch of stuff over here. Now I want to bring it back, or I want to move it over here. And you can, and the temptation, because the move tools are there, is to use the move tools, but they kind of create this really complicated page that's hard to look at. Whereas if you use the magic moves, you can animate all of those things moving around really effectively. Anyway, there's your tip for the day. Next question.
Paul Wallace from Hot Springs, Arkansas. If you had to choose one primary AI app for Android, iOS, Mac OS, and Windows, would it be MyMind, ChatGPT, or Copilot?
I guess I would say I would do. I think I would probably do ChatGPT. Like, I think that would be my. I don't know about you. I don't know how everyone else. I mean, I use ChatGPT a lot, and in all kinds of funny ways. You know, for some reason, we got it. I asked ChatGPT last night to make to tell Buddhist jokes. I just, like we were talking about it. We saw something on YouTube. That where someone asked the Dalai Lama if he said what happens when I think he asked the Dalai Lama. He goes, what did the Dalai Lama order for when he went to the bagel shop? And he said, make me one with everything. And the Dalai Lama thought that was pretty funny. And anyway, so then we saw that, and I asked a bunch of jokes that are appropriate for Buddhism, and it was most of them were clunkers, but there were a couple funny ones. Anyway, so those are the kind of you can ask it for a lot of different things there. Anyway, next question.
Chad Lafarge from Columbia, Missouri, asking, have you used the Midjourney website versus Discord yet, and how is it?
Yeah, I haven't used the Midjourney website for. I haven't used the Midjourney website to actually create new things, and I don't know if it can do that. I've always used Discord for that. If it is, that must be brand new as far as an update goes. I'll take a look while Chris is talking, but I use it a lot to look at what I'm doing. So to look at my account, to look at all the images I've ever created, to do all those things I can do inside of the web page, and it's really powerful. It is, but I didn't know I haven't been tried to generate anything because I just think of going to it. But go ahead, Chris.
I think I just saw this yesterday. I think they just released a Midjourney iPhone app. I'm looking at
a Midjourney iPhone app.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I saw an ad like literally yesterday.
Yeah, I mean the main thing that see, I'm just trying to. I don't see a place. There's a place to explore. I don't see a place. Oh, hold on. No, there is a. It says at the very top. There. Oh, it says coming soon. So if someone has it, I don't have it. So here I'll show you what I was looking. I was confused. Obviously, I need some clocks yesterday, so I was making clocks yesterday. So for an example, but so this is my feed, and what I also needed some huts, and I needed some Zen gardens, and then some microphones, and then I had Elmo as the destroyer. Anyway, so so if you click on this, it'll tell you what this is, and you can actually go ahead and copy the prompt and put it back in. So this is a pretty simple one. But anyway, so I love the web page for that. What I think that Chad is pointing to is this imagine right up here. So it says coming soon. So it's not quite there yet. But that's yeah. Should be cool. As soon as it comes up, we'll spend a little time talking about it, because I bet you there'll be. I know John Preto has been. Hi, John. Has been talking about the fact that this stuff will get out of Discord and into the web page, and we'll have more tools and less prompts and everything else. So, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, if you ask for huts, will it show a Java?
I don't know. Oh man, someone just sent me a note that told me what I needed to know, and then it disappeared. Hold on, let's see here. There is an alpha of Midjourney. Hold on, that I was told of. And we have a little extra time, so I'm trying to, let's see, join the beta. Trying to do this.
There it is.
I'm just trying to. Let's see here. And I am very, man, the way that they have this set up is not the best. Hold on. I clicked on something to a web page, and then it took me back to Discord. It was very janky. I just want to click on a thing and get to the thing. So anyway, hold on. Let me. This is I think that's what we're paying for this whole. All right. So, Imagine seems to work now. Hold on. Let's try it. What should we do here?
It works on the website. So when is it coming soon? It meant like in the next 20 minutes.
Well, so what happened was that it was a couple folks posted. Let's try. We'll just try a black and white. Let's do metal gear on a road surface. Surface, said, submit stylized should be between 0 and, I am between, because I have that comma there. Let's try that. And then disappeared. I don't know if it meant anything. Here we go.
Did it work?
I don't know. It's still working. It says it's 0% complete right now. We're doing this live. We've never done this before. It's in alpha. Probably breaking some kind of terms of service by doing this, but we're going to do it anyway. Very exciting. There we go. And here it comes. It's picking up speed. Working. What are we going to get? Yeah, so it's a web page now that will do this. I don't know what the web page. Here's some files. So there was no gear, but it did give me a surface that looks amazingly cool. And let's see, I can, look at that. So I can do landscape or portrait or something else like that. Lets me select that, turn my stylization up, turn the weirdness up, turn the variety up. Oh, that's cool.
Is weirdness a command in the Discord prompt?
Yeah.
Can you go?
But usually you type it in.
--W120.
Yeah. It's like, I don't. You just say weird. You don't usually give it a. It's like a tag. Anyway, well, there you go. Look at that. So yes, it's available on the website. You saw it here first, or I saw it here first. Many of you did not see it here first, obviously, because you're asking questions about it. Looks cool. It feels a little clunky. I'm not sure if I would use it out of the gate, but it is. But I think it's it's an alpha. I mean, so we don't want to make any decisions about it. And it's funny. It says, "Have you made 1,000 images? You get to be in the alpha." So I definitely fit into that model. Of what is necessary. So there you go. So that's a new Midjourney. We'll play with it a little more. I think we'll probably do a Midjourney day sometime soon. So stay tuned for that as we do kind of a Midjourney update and take a look at what is new. A lot of stuff going on here. Coming up, we'll be talking about the NFL graphics and answering your questions. A lot of your questions coming in. So stay tuned for that. Quick reminder that tomorrow, Geert Bevin, he is the director of software development for Moog Music, will be joining us and talking about the new Moog app for the Vision Pro. It's really cool. and he is brilliant. so it's really going to be a great day tomorrow. Spatial video. We'll talk about spatial video, what it takes to shoot it, process it, what's out there right now, what we think is coming on Thursday. And of course, Saturday and Sunday are 2 hours or up to 2 hours of Q&A. Sunday being a little bit more introspective. And if you are interested in being a panelist and you've been there, come on a Sunday, come hang out with us, or a Saturday. It's a good, safe place to get started if you're interested in joining us on the panel. Welcome back to the second hour, and we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl graphics. I think that they were safe. I guess is what I would say. There are some impressive flexes. I don't think that CBS pushed the graphics as far as some of the other folks have in the past. But I do think that they were clear, and you understood what you were looking at, which I think is good. But we will look at a couple flexes and talk about what it might have taken to do it. I know that some people that work on this kind of thing on the back end. I will be keeping my eye on the chat. So if you guys are there, go ahead and throw any comments in that you want to make. And instead of jumping right into the graphics here, I think we've got a bunch of questions. So we're just going to jump into the questions first, and go from there, and then we'll come back to looking at the graphics here in a second. But we had a lot of questions stacking up, and I want to take that into account. So let's go to the first question.
Jumping in is Douglas Carmichael. Paramount Plus had the lowest latency Super Bowl stream, but over the air had the lowest overall latency. Pipeline or medium?
Who cares? I'm sorry. What I mean by that is I am so tired of talking about latency. Like, the only reason latency matters in a football game is really is because of gambling. And you're gambling per play, and that is a horrible idea. Like, it is a horrible idea to gamble per play. If you are gambling per play, you should talk to someone. Like, actually go out and talk to someone who can help you through your troubles, because that is you're just addicted to gambling at that point. And I get that everyone wants you to get addicted to that, but it's really bad for you. And so I'm not gonna shit on people too often, but you really shouldn't gamble per play. I mean, it's insane, and so the only reason you have low latency in a football game that really matters, and what's more important, is everybody's in the same place in that area. I don't think it really, I think the problem is what you give up is typically quality. So sure, they can do that, and it doesn't mean that the Paramount would fall apart everywhere, but it falls apart for some people. If you're lowering the buffer inside of your delivery, I would much rather not be in real time and be getting a great quality image than I would, be in real time where I have it breaking up all the time. And so I think that, I think the Paramount Plus, I'm sure, worked really, really hard on that. It's probably really, really expensive. And I doubt almost anybody noticed, and so I just think that I think the latency thing is insanity. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm with Alex on that. I don't see what the point of it is. And even if you go back to the old days of broadcast, they had to bounce it off satellites and do things. There was latency from day one.
It's still delayed.
Yeah,
it's still delayed.
It gets delayed. Yeah. So the question is that affecting your viewing pleasure? I watched on Paramount Plus. I didn't get anything that came back to me that said this is less than perfect. I think they went to a lot of trouble to make sure that Paramount Plus signal was as good as it can be. It looked great. Didn't look like 4K to me, but it looked good. It was clean.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was. And man, did they push Paramount Plus on that show? I mean, that's what you knew that they were going to do. I mean, that's why you buy it, is to try to. But I have to admit, the amount that Paramount Plus is pushing it starts to feel desperate at some point. Like, it's just, there's so much. They're just banging on us trying to figure it out. And I just feel like they came into the gate too late. And so everyone's already got subscriptions. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of the ones that I have. Like, which ones I'm going to get rid of, not how do I add more. So I think that's their challenge. So I guess I just don't care. Like, I feel like this conversation I'm kind of frustrated with. I will admit that I watch at a much higher latency because typically I start the game about 20 minutes in. I'm not trying to interact with other people on Twitter. I'm not trying to do any of that stuff. I don't want to watch the ads. In this case, I did. So I stayed 20 minutes behind for a lot of the time because I actually wanted to watch things. But generally, I start all my football games 20 or 30 minutes in. And then when it gets to halftime, I'm caught up and I go do something else for an hour, and then I come back and I watch it again. And that way I can zip through. I've gotten ninja fast at going through ads, on YouTube Live, on my YouTube TV. And I also, which drives my whole family crazy, any boring play, I just jump 15 seconds ahead. Like I'm just like, or sometimes I just go tap, tap, and I'm just to the next play, generally. And so I move through the game very fast. And so unless Tony Romo is commenting, because I love listening to Tony Romo. So I do listen to it at a slower rate in that case. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say regarding latency, we have an interesting problem at our house where we have Xfinity and one of the boxes is wired and one is Wi-Fi. So if you're watching it both ends of the house, you'll hear people laughing at different times in different ends of the hallway.
When FIFA was, FIFA I think went out to over 190 when they were in Brazil. They went out to over 190 outlets. So they're providing this, this huge, EVS managed the backhaul into AWS, and then it was driven to all these locations, and it's clean feeds that then have the local graphics added and local commentators and all the stuff that happened. And what was funny is different people were watching different streams when we were at an event in Moscone, and you could hear people cheering down the line like, and you knew it was coming to your area, but you hadn't seen it yet. So I think that sync is more important than latency. Everyone being in the same place so that they can enjoy it at the same time might be better for interaction, but I don't think that the overall latency matters. I do think it matters when you're talking to people. So in real time, I think that latency matters a lot. And I think what's funny is the same people who are trying to get low latency think that two-way communication over 500 milliseconds is okay each way, right? Like they think, oh, SRT, we can just do it that way. That I am very sensitive to, and I find that to be a very clunky conversation. But when you're watching something one way, I don't really care. Next question.
David Brady, New York, New York. Behind-the-scenes mocap of SpongeBob and Patrick voiceover actors at the Nick Superbowl. What is the iPhone head mount they're using?
Yeah, so this is what they're using here to do that. And I think, are they both using iPhones for that, or are they doing? Yeah, and so this is there's a variety of facial captures that can be used there. And it turns out that the iPhone now is just about as high resolution as you need for them to work. And so they're, and that is being driven. I don't remember the name of the app right now. I want to say it's Face. Someone can maybe throw it in there. Anyway, I've done some stuff with Nick Justin related to this, and the iPhone is being connected to Unreal Engine and then going out live. Now, when they're showing this going back and forth, I'm not clear that they were actually doing it live into Unreal, because we would have seen some aliasing if it was doing it in real time. But they can also record at a high frame rate, and then you can deliver that. And so it's a headset, and it's just sometimes you put points on your face for some reference, but a lot of times you can just throw it up there. The higher frame rate allows you to oversample. So what you can do is if you're capturing, not trying to do it real time. So real time, you are going to lose fidelity, because right now with real time you have, you're capturing these frames and you're dropping the animation in exactly the same frames. And if there's any errata, you get to see it. But if you capture at 480 frames a second, you get all these frames in between the ones you're delivering. And if a couple of these are in or out, you can smooth them out, and that higher resolution, that oversampling, really makes a big difference in the quality of the animation. We use a thing called the Butterworth filter. I think we still use it for blending all of that stuff together from the raw data. Next question.
Talalek Lopez Waterman in Galisteo, New Mexico, asking, overall, I found the graphics during play for the Super Bowl a bit restrained. Is that just in comparison to the regular season or CBS versus others?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree, Talalek. I think that I wouldn't use necessarily restrain, is that unless they were restrained from doing all these little lower third bugs that dance and do crazy things in the corners. That's very annoying. The other thing I saw that was, I didn't watch that much of the game, but I did watch some of it, was when the telestrator came out, the telestrator was over top of everything, including the lower third. And that just struck me as being a little jarring. I would have rather have had the telestrator underneath the lower third, but that's just me.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think maybe only John Madden should be allowed to tell us straight. I was at one point, it looked like the guy was just scribbling and here, and it didn't make any sense. I don't follow football, so maybe it did make sense, but it seemed really erratic. In regards to the restrained or overly elaborate lower thirds, the typical football fan, how much do you think it matters to them?
Well,
The design of this
it's
stuff.
not what they I think that what I would say is that we have to be careful when we say people won't notice, because what really is there is that it's not what they notice, it's how they feel. When they're watching something, and when they cut between CBS and NBC and Fox, they're making choices that they don't even know. They're deciding this is a higher end feed or a lower end feed. It's not that they notice it, and it's not that they care, but they are making a decision, and they're making it in a place that is so hard to get to, which is their subconscious. So they are subconsciously making a decision on the quality based on, that's why a lot of these graphics actually matter, and why we're talking about them now, is that they actually are making decisions that are about the brand, and about whether they care about watching on CBS or on other things when they look at those things. I think that personally the NBC graphics look, as far as a broadcaster, the NBC graphics and the Amazon graphics look those are probably the two most pleasing to look at, in my opinion. But I will say that they are actually harder to read. So the one thing about the CBS ones that you look at is it was clearer to understand what was actually happening. So sometimes you kind of feel like you have to look at the NBC graphics for a while before you understand what all those little buttons are. Like all the same information is there for the NBC one as it is for the CBS one. But the CBS has definitely made it clear, made it a decision that you're going to understand where you're at. I feel like the gradients in the CBS one, a little old. The little high to low is a little 90s or 80s or at least aughts. We kind of stopped doing that a while ago. So for those kind of broadcast graphics, so I think that's a little aged. But I think that overall, I feel like they played a little safer, they played clearer. And we'll look at some of the graphics there in a second. But I think that to Tlalek's point. But I do think that they're more readable, and I think that it takes a shorter amount of time to understand what you're looking at. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, after you said the it looks old using gradients, I'm curious as to who makes the styled calls, and who's deciding out there this is fashionable, this is not. Is it just somebody tries something new and everybody goes, "Hey, that's cool, let's use that"?
Yeah, pretty much. Usually somebody does something and everyone decides that they like it, and then they move on, and suddenly something that looked modern no longer looks modern because it's you've now seen some other future that you're more interested in. So
you wouldn't want to see the CNN version of it.
I definitely would not want to see the CNN version. So next question.
Next question from Eric Hers in Hartford, Connecticut. According to Dan Rayburn, the Paramount Plus live stream of the Super Bowl on their Amazon Prime Video app was 1080p, 60 frames, true PQ HDR at 2 seconds of latency via the PSI protocol. I would love to learn more about this technology.
Yeah, I think that this kind of thing can be done now. It's not it's go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say I did watch Paramount Plus. I thought it looked great. I saw no dropouts or any problems, except when I left the app and then tried to get back in. There was a bit of latency getting it to get out of the spinning mode because I think a lot of people were trying to get in. But for the most part, it was a great experience.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I am not familiar with the PSI protocol, so we'll take a look at it. We'll see if we can bring somebody on, talk about it, see if we can learn. Next question.
Harshid Trivedi from Daytona Beach, Florida. Accessibility for the win during the Super Bowl. In any regards, what do you think of this behind the scenes of the Super Bowl commercial that Google Pixel did?
It's hard for us to grab things after the show.
I remember seeing it. And thinking they were doing a lot of extra stuff for it. I didn't understand most of what I was looking at, though. Yeah,
go ahead, Mitchell.
I was going to say I did watch it, and they blurred the vision as if somebody was, vision impaired. So we got a little bit of a taste of that, and the explanation went along with it. It was an interesting experience, and I think for a sighted person to understand what an unsighted person is dealing with was cathartic.
Yeah. And one thing also, by the way, David said that the graphics department has a lot of meetings to go through annual changes. Yeah, I think we were talking about the trends and how people make the trends. As far as graphics go, those get worked on all year. Like they're probably, they're oftentimes developing. They happen all the way through the season as well. I think that I think the Google one was really great to show that. I also think it was great that they really, they have some interpreters that were sign interpreters that they were showing, and they really played them up in the pre-show, like in the pregame stuff that they, really made it clear that there's somebody doing that, which I thought was really great. And Paul Buchan says that this was also directed by a vision impaired director as well, put together. So that's great. Next question.
Eduardo Augustine from Panama City, Panama. How does Nickelodeon add all that graphic keys, slime, and characters added to the game, and how is this done?
I didn't see the Nickelodeon one, but I think a lot of that can be done. You're simply putting that stuff out I don't know without looking at it. But this is I haven't seen it. I didn't watch the Nickelodeon feed. Go ahead, Chris.
I did see one lower third that somebody posted on Instagram, and it said there was a picture of Travis on the bench, number 87. It said, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, he's good at football, was the lower third.
That's great. That's great. So I'm sure that they had a lot of fun with it. A lot of the graphics there are being generated with a key. You can do a lot of stuff in real time that are generated with key fill. So those are simply driven into that system. So I think that that's most likely. Without seeing it, I didn't think about it. I should have. Next time we'll try to record all the feeds that are there. I mostly just did it with what I had. I just recorded the main feed. Next question.
Courtney Gooden from Hollywood, California, usually here on our panel. What did you think of the 3D generated player team stat packages with the player pictures and stats rendered into Vegas Hotel Marquees?
I liked it. We'll look at a couple of these renders. I think overall, I thought that the design was really nice. Again, I thought it was more conservative, but I also thought that it was very clear, and there was a lot of stuff that looked really, really nice. So I liked it. I thought that there was nothing there. I don't think that there was anything in the package that I didn't like. I think there was a lot of conversation about the fonts that people didn't seem to like the fonts over the break, but I think they were fine. And I think, again, I felt like they were playing a little bit more conservative, but it was very clear. And I liked a lot of the packages they put together there. Next question.
Eduardo Augustine is back with a question. This Super Bowl graphics felt somewhat dull. What was the focus this time? Less flash and more football?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they made a decision to, it was about the game, and it was also about being clear. Again, I think that the CBS graphics are about the most clear that you would see in any of the graphics, where when you look at it, you really get a clear sense of what's going on, and you don't have to watch it for a while. It does feel like, again, there's other ones that I think look nicer and more pleasing to look at. But I think that in those cases, you do feel like you have to have watched a lot of their games to understand what you're looking at when you look at the facade at the bottom. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, you said that sometimes that you'll track people's eyes and what they're looking at. And I'd be very curious what the statistics show where people are looking during a game. How are they looking at the lower third? What are they looking at the stats while they're watching the play?
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to, the price of these eye trackers. Tobii is the company that makes these, Tobii, and they make a whole variety of ones you wear, ones ones that are sitting under the monitors. And I am really curious about eye tracking related to these, because you can really get a real sense of what matters and what doesn't matter at a lower brain level, because you don't choose your eyes nearly as much as you think. You're constantly looking around. I think you become more in the Vision Pro, in Apple's Vision Pro, you actually become more conscious to your eyes than normal, because that's how you're selecting things. But most of the time, your eyes are doing what they're going to do while you're talking. And here's Eduardo put in a. Let me grab this real quickly here. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So now I understand what they're talking about here. Hold on. That's good. So here's what was being discussed here. Hold on. Let's back this up. This was what. So this is what we would tend to look at as an AR effect. A little bit more fun than most of the ones we see on broadcast. Let's see. It looks like there's a bump over here. Let's take a look at this.
Wait,
here.
that was a graphic? I just assumed it was real.
You thought it was real slime?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's understandable. Yeah. So so you saw that little animation there that they're putting in. Hold on.
Look at, they've changed the line of scrimmage line to be slime green. It looks like.
And this is from a different game. Like, this isn't from this one, but I think it gives us a sense of what they're talking about as far as the slime goes. Yeah. So what happens is that, there's, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if that's real time 3D or not. It's a lot of particle effects to do there. So basically, though, what they're doing is, with a lot of the graphics, and we'll see some when we look at some of the graphics here. A lot of those, they are, they have to calibrate the cameras to the field. So you have to know exactly how the cameras work against the field and where that plane is, and making sure that you've got all the focal lengths and all the bits and pieces there, so that it'll tie right in. In the larger ones here, it looked like they're just doing a simple zoom from a specific camera that was probably designed to make that actually work. And I guess Joaquin has a highlight here. Hold on, let me add this here for the Nickelodeon one. Let's see if we can see some other highlights of these. It's kind of fun. I've always felt like there was an opportunity to do many versions of a stream. I didn't get that right. Let's try that again. And so I think it's really cool that they took Nickelodeon. They did a Nickelodeon version of it. Let's see if I can find. I mean, it is fun that they're, if you look at this here, so you can it's cool. Oh, so now they're talking about, they've definitely pushed a lot more Taylor Swift than we had in our show here. Let's see here. This is just random grabs playing with the graphics here. So they're taking advantage of a lot of the graphics that they would have there. Now, I think in a lot of cases here, these are comped in, and I think they work from a very specific angle. So I don't think that these are. You'll notice that there's just a slow zoom in there. They're not moving the camera as much. That they're key.
I mean, obviously they have access to the same technology that does the line of scrimmage and the first down
Although it doesn't
line,
seem to be working quite as well. Like, it doesn't key.
That looks pretty good.
Maybe it's just the graphic. I wouldn't have picked that graphic. Yeah. I mean, that technology is pretty well known. Yeah,
so
but when you see,
that basically the same thing that would put that little.
So now that looks like 3D. Oh, there's.
No, I think that's real.
Hold on. Well, that.
Wow. This is really awkward to watch.
But I can definitely see kids enjoying. No, this is the. Hold on.
What are they doing?
Wow,
that's got to be a shot from somewhere
real
else.
and a fake.
I mean,
together.
it's close enough that they could have they cut that in. They shot that earlier that day or some other day. Like, but you can see how kids would. I can imagine kids enjoying that. Like it would. They would. That's a whole nother. There's a whole nother second hour of just Nickelodeon's version of that. It's really fun. I mean, again, I think that there's adding explanations, adding a lot of other things. I think you could. I always felt like you could have one that's a more beginners show, and then one more insider. Like, for instance, I love. John Fisher said his kids 10 and 13 loved it. They thought it was great. And I've always thought that you could have multiple versions of these using many of the same cameras. The hard part is it's cutting different cameras is difficult because you're calling those cameras, and a lot of them are zooming in, zooming out, et cetera. So those are things that are. But I think it was a great way to get kids into the NFL is working pretty hard. I don't know if you saw the ad. The one that really stood out for me was the ad of the NFL is starting to recruit in Africa. Like they had a whole thing of a football program of how to get they had a whole, I think it was in Nigeria, but they were pushing the fact that they were the NFL is now building programs in Africa to build up players there. It's really interesting to see how global they're trying to become.
Have you ever tasted slime before from Nickelodeon?
I haven't tasted the Nickelodeon slime. I have tasted other slime, and I don't appreciate it. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's sort of flowery tasting,
thumbs
like
down.
flour.
Yeah. Next question.
Next question from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. This is not necessarily Super Bowl graphics related, but still with the NFL, do we think there will be more fun graphic feeds and events like they did with the live Toy Story animated game?
I think that they're going to keep on having fun with it. They're trying to keep on. A big thing is trying to build up the audience that's going to hopefully be next. I think one of the challenges that the NFL and most sports have right now is that the 25 and under crowd is just not watching very much sports. It's dramatically lower than 34 and above. So it's and they're very worried about the feeder that feeds it in. I think some of this has to also do with parents not letting their kids play football. So when I didn't say no, but I definitely had no pressure on my son, who is a big guy. It would have been. I'm sure that the team would have loved to have him on as a lineman. But I wasn't pushing for him to play the way that I was pushed to play. So I think that affects when people don't play the game, they're not going to watch it as much. I mean, that's the reality. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Hot Springs, Arkansas, asked, what happened to the frequent telestrator use by the commentators? Remember Mike Fratello, who Marv Albert called the czar of the telestrator, and his masterful use of this medium?
We'll take a look at it. I think that Tony Romo uses it a lot less, and Chris wishes he used it even less. But we'll take a look at it. I thought there were some really interesting graphics that I do want to show here in just a minute after we get through some of these questions. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith from Chautauqua. What might be the team looking like that helps to produce the graphics during the game?
Oh man, it's huge. It's a huge team. There's a lot of these teams. There's the real time operators. There's the lower thirds are run by one engine. The 3D graphics against those is another engine. These are all have to be concerted together. Some of them are cheap 2D tricks, which we will look at too in just a second. But there's a lot of it's a very large team, because remember, all that data that you see in the lower third has to be driven in real time. So that's data coming in and being processed by the engine and then put out, and it has to be accurate, and it has to be it has to be accurate, and it has to be in real time. So next question.
Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Galisteo, New Mexico. The Corridor crew did a great explanation of sports graphics today. Beacons on the players and camera feedback. So cool. Are those beacons radio beacons?
I would need to, we'll take a look at it. I mean, I don't know. We'll take a look at it, maybe ask that question again. I'm not going to be able to get to it. Probably process that information in real time, but let's we'll take a look at what they showed there. So let's go ahead and look at some of the graphics here. I know that I feel like, so what the reason that we started with the questions, by the way, is because every time we show graphics, we end up getting caught up in them, and then we don't answer anybody's questions. So I was like, I'm going to start with the questions, and then we'll go to the graphics to make sure that we got your questions answered. So anyway, so let's take a look here. So this is, let me grab, let's see here. We're just going to kind of skip through it here. So I think a lot of this stuff, it is really worth breaking down, by the way. This, when you see this stuff here, there is so much going on in these, really take a look. When you think about how do I build a 3D graphic, the graphics for these types of things, a little low resolution down here, I would have probably put a little more time into that. But really look at the detail that's being added to this edge. So this highlight is not by accident. So you have to bevel that out. in that highlight to make that work. And it's really, I got a bad color here. So this highlight right across here makes it feel more solid. It makes it feel like, and you see these little highlights here and all the stuff that's going on. And that's, added geometry. Look at how they've lifted this off to create a little bit more geometry right here in the star. But these are the kind of things that you're going to see in a major broadcast that you're not going to see necessarily in a, as you go through and look at how they're, I think this is really trying to be a call towards neon, like, oh, it's a little like a neon light. It's not exactly like a neon light, but it's a little like a neon light, as they start to put that stuff together there. And so we can see it kind of pull back, but also look at, when you break these things down, you also want to look at like how they're building. The highlights really tell you how the geometry is built. You might not see it all there, but as you see it there, you can start to see how they've built this highlight out with these reflections, and you'll see it kind of pull back. And it's really, the amount of detail in these two logos as well is really amazing. And so you get these in little close-ups. Now look at, again, when you start to break this down, look at how they're kind of morphing these. These are kind of scaling and rotating over time. And that's giving you that kind of blended in effect that's there.
Which kind of digital spaghetti.
Yeah, it's and there it is breaking away. You can see the reflection of that there. Here. Oops. So I thought this was interesting. This was an edit that they wanted it to look like glass. So you'll see these little highlights up here and down here. So they're kind of trying to make it look like you're looking at it on a pane of glass. Oh, it's because I rewound it. Hold on. There we go. I'm just watching it again. I think I did that while I was doing the recording. So you see that kind of pane of glass there. It's a really subtle effect, but that's what they were kind of going for as far as that look goes. By the way, nice shot here. I didn't feel like this. This is not really graphics, but I really didn't feel like the Steadicam shot worked. Like, look how much it was, just a little bouncy for a Steadicam shot. I know it's live, and I know that you get one time to do it, but I didn't feel like that was the best Steadicam shot. And that they rehearsed it a lot. Probably would have used a different kind of thing. So this is, these are great graphics. I'll show you a little bit later. I thought this looked really good. I have a feeling, and I don't know this for sure, but I don't think that they expected them to stand up. So before we get to the end of the hour, I'll show you why. But no. When they stand up, there is all kinds of junk that's up above their heads. So it took me a while because I didn't see this very open. I was like getting guacamole or something. So I didn't really notice it when this happened. But this looks beautiful. Like this is an LED wall back there. I think that they're finally figuring out the LED walls, and it looks really nice. But they do another frame where they decide to stand up, and it becomes it's a little bit messy, in that area. By the way, this is, if you're wondering, what these are their comms, for them to be able to do what they need to do there. But there's they're the graphics there. Let's see if we can. So here are the graphics, and again, it is nice stuff. It's well laid out. This is kind of the typical. So here you can see that they pulled what they had in that logo. They pulled it back here in this kind of faux neon look that they've created here. And it's a nice. There's more to it than just. Hold on. There we go. Look at how it comes in. So there's a little bit of. So look at the timing. So this comes out. There's a little open there where it tells you you're in. There's your timer. Let's see here. Let me go back here. So here's your transition out. And so what you want to look at is, and when you break these graphics down, you really want to look at everything frame by frame. So that blink is not by accident. They're doing that to catch your eye. That's like, hey, something's about to happen. and then they're going to fade that in. They're going to open that up with the logos, and then they're going to fade out to this. So, I mean, obviously they're flexing here, and it looks really nice, and it fits into that rolling kind of graphic that they had earlier. So nice, really nice interconnection there. But here again, a very clear graphic as far as what it looks like here. And I'll let you jump in here, Chris.
Hold on a second. Keep going forward to where it revealed that 25. Is that like the shot clock? You have 25 seconds to make your play.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because this is the start of the game. There's no info in here. It's 0-0. They all got their timeouts. I thought the timeout highlight was very subtle and classy. But it's interesting. They're showing that 25 there to say,
in the last play it didn't matter. Because the last player
later, this is where you're going to see that information.
Right.
This is almost just like the demo reel for the graphics. This is what you're going to be looking at all day.
And then here you can see, this is their fade out. And again, I will say, and I'll keep on saying, if you're interested in doing graphics for corporate or for anything else, and you're not really busy right now, and you're watching the show and you're thinking about graphics, the way that I got into doing graphics for broadcast was simply taking things like this, doing exactly what we're doing here, going frame by frame, and then reproducing it in my case at the time, After Effects. And so reproducing it and reproducing an electric image in After Effects. And so I build all the 3D models, and I would render them all out, and I would do it piece by piece. And I didn't care if I wasn't doing it for my demo reel. I was doing it to learn how to do it, because the best way to do it, the teams that are doing the graphics for CBS, the graphics for NBC, the graphics for other networks, they're the best in the world at what they do. And there's nobody you can learn from that are better than these folks when it comes to putting these graphics together. The question is how I record these. I think Eduardo asked, and I record all my shows on YouTube TV. So I have literally any show that might have a graphic that's live, I hit plus, and I record them all, and they're all sitting in a database. And then what I do is I YouTube TV out to a recorder, so I out of my computer, and then just hit record and walk away, and come back, and there it is. It's all here. Anyway, so you can. So the YouTube. The reason that I have YouTube TV is because I record them. That's how I justify paying for it, because I don't watch enough TV to make it worth it otherwise. And so here's the graphic coming in. A little things, by the way, is that this is a properly generated motion blur. If it's improperly generated, you'll see a black edge here. And sometimes you do see it when other people do graphics, but this was really well done. Nice little layout there. And again, look at all the things that they're doing. They've got this is out of focus and in motion blur, rolling in. It's going to come into focus, and then this is going to start fading. This is like a unit that's all designed to work on its own. It's not like someone's calling that out there. Then this is a slide inside. So what's interesting here is watch how it's funny. It works, but I would not have done this. So I have a thing if I'm gonna hide something, I need it to fade into some line over here. And it didn't do that. They just faded it out. They just have a fade, like a alpha channel right there, that they just faded into. It does work for this. I'm not going to argue about it working. It was really outside of my, when I went step by step, I was like, oh, I didn't notice it before. So they obviously pulled it off. A little semi-transparent there. Here you can see, little things. These all line up. Sometimes they don't. It drives me crazy. So having those line up there, little glows in here. Again, I'm not that big of a fan of this great top to bottom gradient. But here you can see these little kind of glows in here. And I do think that the gold starts to get a little close to having a readability issue with the white, but it's not too bad. And you guys can just jump in if you see something else you want to talk about. But here you can see the pop up and down. So that's telling you, as Chris was talking to you, that's communicating to you. And there's little things. It's San Francisco has the ball, because you can see the white bar here.
I didn't notice that.
It's 1st and 10. So it's
I like how they use the highlight, the neon highlight, to signal something else is behind me. So the highlight comes up, does its little thing, and it brings up the next layer.
Tells you it's coming. Yeah.
It's a nice touch.
This is great here. I mean, I thought that this was a nice, the way that they have this graphic comped in. So in the same way that they have the, obviously you have your down marker and you have your first down marker here. And these are all things we've gotten used to. Like I was looking at some old footage of some other game and I was just like, wow, we used to not have that at all. But I thought this kind of semi-transparent little 1st and 10 is a really, worked really nicely as far as, again, it's amazing how much information you're looking at when you're looking at one of these games.
Alex, do you think they, because, how do I say this? So, because more people watch the Super Bowl because of the event, like, for example, this is the only football game I watched all year. Okay, so do you think they take it that they add almost a level of tutorial, like we're going to teach you some things about football here. Look, the arrow, they're going that way. They're going to be going that way.
This is new for you. I mean, a lot of these things are being added to a lot of the games, and so it's not.
Well, that's what I was asking. Do you think
so
they
a lot of those things
take advantage of that?
But I think that what they do take advantage of is there's a huge budget, and so usually if you're going to see a new graphics package for like the same graphics package we saw for the Super Bowl, is most likely going to be the graphics package they use next year. Like they don't, so there's a huge budget, and so usually when the network updates its graphics package dramatically is usually when they're doing the Super Bowl, because they all take turns doing the Super Bowl. And so that's their big graphics update. And then they're going to own that graphics package and continue to tweak it and continue to make it better. But the big push is during the football season. Now let's go back to the graphics here. So here you can see they're going to now show you. I will say, I thought this was nice. So what's nice is there's a lot of progressions going on here. So you've got the wipe, and the things that are happening right behind it are these little highlights here that are kind of following that wipe as it goes over. And then you can see it starting to open up their game numbers there in kind of a nice, and they're not, it's not that complex. This is just a circle transition, but it's got a little bit of a bump at the end. See how it like each one of them kind of dissipates, here, which you see it in real time. It's really, really subtle. And that's the thing to look at, is how much is happening. And look at you look at these little arrows going in behind them that's adding more energy to it. And, I'm sure that there were a lot of meetings, as David Brady was talking about, and a lot of meetings here about what that design in the back end looks like, which we see later in the show as well. So that was kind of.
Why do you suppose the hero shots are a little chunky looking on the alpha channel?
They shoot them in front of green screen, and oftentimes, they're not that bad, but a lot of times you get minutes with these players. They have it set up in a green screen, and they go in, and a lot of times, at least the experience I've had, is the green screens aren't keyed the way I would key them, or aren't lit the way I would light them, and so, but they're, and a lot of times it's inside of a lot of moving parts, and so I think you lose a little detail there at times. These are better. I like this. I will say I like this better than the big heads that are, I'm this person over top. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like it always makes me nervous because I feel like you're not ever going to get to the next shot. So here's more information. And again, this information needed more time. So you can see the graphic goes full length now into that. And that's probably a dynamic decision there. So let's...
and just to be clear, the telestrator we're seeing now is you and not the broadcast.
Yeah. I'm my telestrator is better. Let's see here. So he's jumping. Yay. There's a great shot up here. And there's that. There's the other side. Same graphics, same layout. And there's a point where he's going to. So this I thought was really nice. So this is, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
How do they do that?
In real time. Like, just understand, this is the play that happened. Like, this is the reason we want to look at the graphics, is when you look at this, what they just did there, they didn't have time to plan beforehand or whatever. This is a real-time graphic system that is grabbing that. And so if we go back to this, if you look at it here,
it outlines the guy who's crouched
not only does it outline the
standing,
and it also cut him out, right?
Yeah.
So it's just showing him. It's not over, going over. So there's some, and it's not very high resolution. You can see it kind of just a box around him, but it's impressive. And then it opens this up, and notice now again, the key isn't perfect down here, but still, like it's and it's now it's popping up a real time, popping up this real time graph. Oh, this is the wide receiver, so it's doing this, but it's showing him and this little graphic here, and it's comping around. It's not over top of it, folks, and it's properly aligned to the. Now, this is also related to all the other syncing that they're doing with the first down markers and everything else, but it knows where that plane is, and so it's inserting that plane in, and it's a really, I think a very pleasing graphic, that they have.
And this
here.
is a replay, correct?
This is a replay, but a replay the second after it happened.
Yeah, I know, I get that.
Yeah, and so it's
it would be interesting to know what the call is in the control room for that.
Yeah.
Or is that just something that comes out of the
definitely a call.
The replay room?
Because he's got to speak to it. So it's not only that you have to. It's not only that you
can do the graphic, in real time, but you also have to.
But Tony Romo is talking to it while that graphic's happening about something that happened 10 seconds ago, and that's why I think it's so important for us to pay attention, because the coordination on this is insane. To make all of the stuff work together is an incredible feat.
I would also like to point out real quick, we went through all the starting lineup stuff. Having switched football games a long time ago, that the first couple minutes of the game where you have to cram in all that extra stuff during the gameplay is super stressful.
Well, you'll see one. I'll show one a little in a second that they didn't get it right, because
I remember
the 49ers rushed to play, and they had an insert that obviously someone spent a lot of time on, and I felt bad. I was like,
and they chopped it off.
They had to chop it off, and I was like, oh, someone back there was just like, yeah, that was like the last 3 weeks of my life.
I remember seeing.
Can they do a cut without throwing their logo at us like that?
No, it's taking you from one place. Typically, it's taking you from one place to another, and so this is why they're doing it. They're cutting you. I mean, they're using it as a transition. Like, that was the past, this is the future. So it's not used by accident. So a couple things here when you look at it again. A lot of scratchy detail, and this is nice. All a map, to look a little more distressed.
You think with all their budget, they could have polished that stuff up for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, guys.
And then this is just but this is what we would tend to refer to as a sweeper. So the first frame, it takes over, and then it's got an alpha channel that will feed back in here. So what you're doing is you're telling it to. Typically, what happens is that when you hit the sweeper, it cuts from. That's when it cut to the other camera. At some point in the sweeper. Sometimes it's not at the beginning. Sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. It cuts from one camera to the other, and now it's just fading that over top, and that's how you get from one place to another.
So it's really a cut, but it's a dissolve with the graphic.
It's a cut with a graphic that dissolves over top of it. Was there a graphic here? Oh, this is a physical sweep. I was like, what happened there? But this is like, we will now. Someone stood up in front of the camera there.
It's a body wipe.
Yeah, body wipe. Give us a body wipe.
Body wipe.
That's what you call it. If you're directing and somebody walks in front of the frame where there's a moment of blackout, that's what it's called. It's a body wipe.
This is just beautiful eye candy.
Alex, how do you feel about their font choices?
I liked them, actually. I didn't have a problem with the font. I know people were complaining about it online, but look at they really did have all the money, didn't they? They really. I mean, I thought this was just so beautiful. Like these little clips in here with this kind of little shiny, gooey stuff that's in here, and here you can see again, kind of going towards the. And I just thought this was really well done. I really like this. Now this is. Whether it's ambient occlusion or global illumination, but it's a simple thing. It's simple graphics. And really what makes this feel real are all these soft shadows and the complex interactions of light that are in here. So you're pulling these out into 3D, and you have these a little bit closer, and then you allow all the lighting to work. And that's, it just makes it feel very real.
Well, without it, you probably wouldn't be able to read the text.
Well, you'd have outlines, or you could have drop shadows. It's the fact that it's a really, it's the way the drop shadow is working. It's the way they built that out. There's lots of ways to do that. Really nice transition here too. Again, I think that the CBS stuff is, I feel very high quality. It's just very different take. So here's the thing, like, hey, it's really interesting. I'm about to do something, and now so I pulled your eye there. Like I did something that gets you to look over, and now I'm gonna open this up and build it out, and then there's gonna be a really nice transition there.
And it flashed the CBS eye like for a couple of frames. That's it.
Lots of subtle stuff that they throw in there. And here's that kind of pattern that we saw before, kind of again reintegrated into that process.
It's almost like they worked on it.
Yeah, it's like they worked on it. Exactly. Here's a bunch of commercials.
What was that? What was that green thing? Oh, that was a Disney movie. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a Disney movie. That's Wicked. Let's see here. There's another. Let's see if we can. There's the blah blah blah. And there's all the people, and then there's the thing, and then we're going to the next thing. Oh, this was nice. So again, to go back to something that's being done in real time, and what you'll notice is that this is most likely Tony Romo has. See, when you watch how it opens, it tells you that Tony Romo's doing this on, like he's doing it while he's setting up. So he's probably got I don't know how this system actually works, but see how he's talking about it, and like it didn't just zoom up. So he's by hand going, oh, there it is. No, I want it to be a little bit bigger. Like that's what I want to do. So that was, and I'm sure that he has control over that when he wants to do it, but he's got a plane that it's going to snap to, and now it's again, look at it. It's not just that it did it in plane, but now they're going to move that camera. So the camera has a plane and it's doing a live key. And the key isn't, the sharpest key in the world, but it totally works, in as far as how this is working. And nice little graphic here and then you have him run out and do that. But I just think that that's a really nice little flex there. Oh, and
how much do you think the hosts are keying these or triggering these graphics like that one we just saw?
Yeah, they're definitely triggering them. Yeah, well, I don't know if they're triggering them. There's a coordination between they're about to do something and the team is this the one that got beat out? No, that's not it. It's pretty near the beginning here is where it got thumped. Let's see here. I thought this was an interesting, by the way, I just, for the Apple thing, it's kind of a cool effect. Hold on. So what they're doing here is so here, what they're doing is a warp. So they're using typically the way we would do this is they're warping this information. So it's a black and white map. Oftentimes it looks like blurred clouds, and you're using that to displace the video. And in this case, they're displacing the video in a way that kind of creates a chromatic aberration. So you'll see the different colors are being, as it, let's see if we back up a little bit, you can see how it's just kind of, it's pushing that. And all of these things are really subtle, but I promise you that took a long time for them to decide and figure out exactly what they're going to do. No one just threw that together.
Looks like an optical effects as opposed to a 3D treatment.
But it was a 3D treatment. It was it might have been a 2D treatment, but yeah, it's designed to look optical there. There's that kind of that stretch and a little bit of a bounce. You can see that little, and again, it may seem simple, so go try to do it yourself and try to do it exactly the way that they did it. It's, all of the, then you really get to respect a lot of these graphics. This is the lowest end graphic of the whole show. So all the networks do this. This is their little sponsor platform or whatever. And this is always like a weird 2D thing. And I have to admit, maybe someone in the back end can tell me why they still use these, but these are built into the switcher, I think. And it's always like this person, it's like a little box. And then there's another little box. I feel like someone just is used to selling this. And so they're like, well, just give me the little box. And this was, but you can see
it's really? Probably not generated on site. It's probably at network. totally different machine, totally different package.
Maybe.
And yes, it was sold
so,
separately.
I feel like and all the networks do it, and I always feel like it's just such a sad thing. Anyway, this is
it's likely it's probably sold by a totally different group, and it's done at master control. They'll work it in when they can.
So here's the graphic. Look at how it kind of spins out. So you got a disk. So it's not just a simple, like, I'm going to do something. And again, these are all the little bits and pieces. And I'm going to keep saying it, that if you want to get into graphics and you have time, right, more time than money, the thing to do is to go through these graphics frame by frame and reproduce them and figure out how to do it and ask questions and, try to figure out how to put it together, because it really is. So you can see that's the football shaped blend into 3D characters. And then it's going to sit there for a little while.
When did State Farm decide to change their logo?
Oh, it's been a long time. Let's see here. So, okay, then so here you can see the transition. Nice. It's a wipe to the CBS logo as it slowly finds it, and then it zooms out. And again, it zooms out to a football and then disappears. So it's really subtle stuff. And again, you may not notice it. Oh, this is a good example, by the way. We were talking about this yesterday. Is they transition here and they'll go, okay, here's a wipe. And then, and this is also a good example. We were talking about in a sweeper, how they get from one to the other. So here, they went the other direction, which is that this appears and then it comes up. I bet you, by the way, the original render here went all the way down to nothing. They decided we don't have enough time for that. So anyway, so here comes the CBS logo, and then it's going to fade. It's fading in, and that's the frame. One of these frames, you have 3 frames to make that decision. Probably that frame that's going to cut from one thing underneath the sweeper. Those are cutting, and now there's Joe Montana. This, by the way, is not live. It's not. So you're thinking, how do they have a camera operator over there? This is what they use the EBSs for all the time. They're just going to capture this moment. They bank it. They plan it. They run the whole thing, together. There's a little graphic, and there was there's another one of the kind of the highlights there. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. Did I miss it? Oh, there it is. So this is another graphic where they're going to kind of highlight what you're looking at there.
Yeah, I love how they use that extra space above to show that there's a highlight there.
And again, they have to get your attention really fast, to make a lot of these things work. Here's so these look like they're the marquees. So I will say that I felt like this was a question from earlier, that they're putting them in different places in the hotel. I felt like all of this was, I thought it looked nice. I felt like it was a little low res. Like I felt like this was a little, I don't know whether it was the last minute or they just wanted to make it look very graphic, but I felt like this was not something they spent as much time on. Like it's pretty simple bevels. It felt like it fell below a lot of what we saw before.
Look at the cars. They're really kind of low res 3D.
Yeah, again, it felt like this felt like a little slapped together compared to some of the other stuff that was there. But again, this was nice. There was an AR thing. I don't know if we're going to get to it. Here, there's holding.
I remember watching that package that got shut off because they rushed the play and thinking, oh.
Yeah, I missed it there, but there was definitely one that you were like, oh.
I would say that was in like the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so, as I recall. Maybe
I thought we had already been there, but I didn't. We missed it somewhere. It was about Brock Purdy, I think, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I'm trying to think about where I was sitting in the room because I moved around.
I did feel like it was right near the beginning, and you just felt bad for the. And when you do this production, you know when things happen, and you're like, oh, they blew it.
Alex, who is the person that cues the live action versus what's happening at the network level? Did they have that all
Oh,
so well
here's
planned
another
out?
graphic. Oh yeah, well, this is a great. There's a whole bunch of great things here. Hold on. We're going to run out of time. I apologize to everybody here. We did get to more than we usually do. So this is that graphic that's tying that graphic back in with a little LED. I do believe this is LED in the front there. Nice little setup. And then this is just gorgeous. Like if you look at the detail in this transition there, so just so much. There's your LED, there's more of your LED lights, but you've got all this like 3D texture and layering that's going on there. And then this is and again, like lots of little things that you want to pay attention to of going along these edges and how those things are blending into each other. You can see how this is
the highlights on the 49er.
Yeah. And then also look at how this is a really pleasing, transition here, that you can see here where it goes. It's pulling apart, exposing it, and kind of slowly disappearing into that. A lot of detail. Anyway, it's as much as we're going to get to today. So anyway, thank you to the producers for all the great questions that we opened it up with. Let us know if you liked it opening up that way. I felt like it's a little odd not to jump right into the graphics, but I also feel like we could do this for an hour and then run out of time and not answer anybody's questions. So we decided to start with that. And that's new approach to that. We won't do this all the time, but we will when we see something big like this. The Olympics will be coming up. There'll be other things like that. I feel like it's worth us just stopping for a second and taking a look at. A lot of people worked really hard on that, and so we want to learn from it as best we can. So thanks to the producers for asking all the great questions. Thanks to the panelists for coming here. We can't do this without you. So good to see all of you here, and thanks to the incredible team on the back end that puts this all together. There's a team that figures out what we're going to be talking about. There's teams that are building the software that makes this all work. There's teams that are cutting the show for us, from all over the world. And if you're interested in being part of that team, you can actually look at volunteers in the emails that we send out, and we put out various things. We're going to be having a volunteer meeting up soon. So a new volunteer meeting this Saturday at 9:00. So we'd love to have you and love to have you part of these production teams. It's a pretty amazing way to meet a lot of people and learn how a global production gets kind of put together. So anyway, hopefully we'll see some new people, some new faces there. You're more than welcome to join us. We traveled 67,000 miles today, 108,000 kilometers, and that is more than 536 million bananas for scale. Okay, let's jump into after hours. I could have done that for another hour. I was like, I don't know if I have enough to go through a whole hour, but
I really do think that one panel is a master control ad. That's why it looks so radically different and so low budget. And
I don't think so. I think it's built into the switcher, but we can try to find out. We'll have to. Oh, the winning touchdown. That's what David was pointing to. Yeah. So anyway,
I tell you, I'm very glad I did the sports that I did. I mean, I kind of hated it, and I would never go back to it. But it's a real eye opener to sit in a truck with all those people yelling.
Yeah, the choreography alone of who does what, when, and how.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's really the most complex live event that I've ever seen, or is what we see every week in football. Like for Major League football, it's just incredible.
Yeah. All right.
Because the other ones, it's hard because you don't see as many graphics, is because you don't have that break between every play.